They once worked together a long time ago. They're not friends now. They don't like each other. And yeah, 50 has taken every shot, especially.
Will explain why he's speaking out now.
He said he's speaking out because he believes Diddy's a predator. He wants accountability, and he doesn't want someone like this to run unchecked.
They worked together years ago. Now, there's nothing left between them but pure hostility, no friendship, no respect, just a long-running rivalry that has turned deeply personal. And 50 Cent isn't taking shots for entertainment anymore. This time, he's aiming to strike where it truly hurts. When people asked why he's pushing so hard right now, 50 Cent's answer was simple. He believes Diddy has been allowed to operate unchecked for far too long, and that the moment for accountability has finally arrived. Then the story took an unexpected turn. The footage at the center of this controversy was never meant to see the light of day. People close to the situation say it was considered too explosive, too risky, and too dangerous to ever be released. But somewhere between a betrayal within Diddy's own circle and 50 Cent's patience running out, the recording that was supposed to stay buried ended up online. And when it dropped, it didn't just trend, it detonated. Not Diddy, not his lawyers, not even his public relations machine could stop what followed. December 1st, 2025 marked the shift. The man once considered the most powerful figure in hip-hop was no longer running the game. He was watching the narrative turn against him from a prison television. And that's the detail people keep coming back to. Diddy didn't just lose a headline, he lost the one thing he could never afford to lose: control of the story.
Out in front of this and tried to persuade Netflix not to come forward with it. I think it's an interesting argument because what they're claiming is, Curtis Jackson, aka 50 Cent, has had a long-standing, animosity against Diddy and sort of vice versa. And because he's at the helm, they're arguing this can't be taken seriously. This should sort of be seen as propaganda. And one of the things that Netflix hit back with was, yes, he's the executive producer. He doesn't necessarily have creative control. And that's something
That's why the Netflix release is being framed as more than just a documentary. It plays like a public takedown, and the person holding the spotlight isn't a prosecutor. It's his oldest rival. Before the premiere, Diddy's legal team reportedly tried to shut the project down, arguing that it was essentially propaganda, executive produced with 50 Cent's fingerprints all over it. Netflix pushed back, stating that 50 Cent did not have creative control over the final cut. Then, the night before the premiere, Diddy's camp allegedly escalated the situation with a cease and desist, claiming the entire project was built on stolen footage and private recordings never intended for public release. Those recordings are what changed everything. According to how the docuseries presents it, the footage captures Diddy in the days leading up to his September 2024 arrest, ranting, panicking, and demanding loyalty from people who were already pulling away. The irony is brutal. The cameras meant to protect his image may have documented the moments that damaged it most. Viewers see him pacing inside a hotel suite, snapping at those around him, barking at lawyers, and speaking like someone trying desperately to contain problems before they explode. The tone isn't calm. It's pressure. It's panic. It's the sound of someone realizing the walls are closing in. And then the brand itself begins to feel different. Bad Boy stops sounding like marketing and starts sounding like a warning. Once the clip spread, audiences fixated on a moment that seemed small but said everything. Diddy smiling for fans in public, then recoiling moments later and asking for hand sanitizer, as if the crowd were beneath him. Polished charm when the cameras are on. Visible disgust the moment the angle shifts. That contrast is what made people say this wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a revelation.
Put his hands on females, put his hands on producers, executives. That's just his. I guess that's what the whole name Bad Boy comes from. That people don't really understand. What is it? What is a bad boy? Why did he choose that name? He never really gave a clear definition of how he feels about it.
This is who he is when the mask slips behind the scenes. The legal response was immediate. Reports say his lawyers leaned on attorney-client privilege, arguing that private strategy conversations were illegally exposed. But by the time that argument surfaced, the damage was already done. The clips were out. The conversation had moved on, and there was no spin strong enough to put the footage back in the bottle. Netflix's side stated that the footage was obtained legally, the rights were secured, and the source would remain protected. Director Alexandria Stapleton leaned into an even sharper point, suggesting that Diddy spent decades filming himself, building an archive without realizing he was documenting his own downfall. He wanted the world to see behind the scenes. Now, the world is behind the scenes without his permission. When Netflix reached out for comment, Diddy's camp reportedly stayed silent until the premiere aired. Then the tone shifted fast. Suddenly, the lawyers were loud, aggressive, and urgent. But by then, the narrative had already changed, not from is he guilty to he is finished. Not from is this real to how much has been hidden for years. Even some people who once defended Diddy began to say it didn't feel like brand new information. It felt like missing pieces finally clicking into place.
That I have about the documentary, it was just old news, and they took a couple of with the footage from Puff from the days that's leading up him to get arrested, the incidents with the people from the courts, the two people from the courts. So it was nothing new.
And the twist didn't come only from what was on the tape, it came from how it got out. Michael Oberle, the man Diddy hired to document his life for more than 2 years, was presented as a key figure in how the archive even existed. The plan, as described, was to build a comeback film, something that would project resilience and control. But in December 2024, Oberle made a claim that shifted everything. He said he didn't leak anything. Instead, he claimed that someone inside Diddy's inner circle covered for him for 3 days while he was out of state. And during that short window, the footage was taken. 3 days. That's all it took. Just enough time for someone to see an opening, whether driven by money, revenge, or chaos, and hand the most damaging material straight into 50 Cent's camp. Oberle's side called it a betrayal of trust. Online, people called it karma. Then came what the documentary frames as the final piece, the clip that allegedly silenced the last remaining doubts. In that moment, the docuseries claims Diddy is seen or heard pressuring someone close to him after showing them an explicit party video, using the threat of exposure as leverage. The line presented isn't flotation. It lands as control through fear. That's why the public conversation narrowed to a single word: coercion. The series argues that if the court accepts accounts like Cassie's, moments like this wouldn't be isolated mistakes. They would be evidence of a pattern. And the docuseries doesn't stop with one clip. It widens the lens to the world that surrounded Diddy for years. It revisits the legendary white parties, the invite-only nights that looked glamorous from the outside, with A-list names drifting through the orbit like it was the Oscars of excess. Then it contrasts that shine with what neighbors and locals allegedly experienced: complaints, police calls, and reports of guests wandering outside at dawn, dazed and disoriented. From there, the documentary connects the party culture to a growing stack of lawsuits. It references allegations from different years, including claims involving a minor in the late 1990s, a security guard who said he was drugged and assaulted in the mid-2000s, and a former adult performer who said she was groomed through multiple events. The series keeps pressing one point: this isn't random. It's systemic.
Look at how many people he affected negatively. That was his trade-off to gain what he had. His former bodyguard, Gene Deal, said he seen him doing a ritual where they dub. What is that? And I feel like it's being overlooked because they see him doing the dance moves with the baggy clothes. Some of the ladies in his videos were trans.
Then it cuts back to what the docuseries presents as Diddy's own words before his arrest. It claims he's caught on camera telling his lawyers they're losing, snapping back when someone tries to reassure him. It plays like panic in real time, not someone managing a storm, but someone realizing he can't. As celebrities reacted, the divide grew louder. Ja Rule criticized 50 Cent and called him a dry snitch. Marlon Wayans warned about karma, then faced backlash when 50 Cent posted older footage linking him to the party scene. Joe Budden took a harder line, arguing that the documentary isn't only about Diddy, it's about the system that protected him. Labels, lawyers, executives, artists, people who benefited while the money never stopped flowing. That's where the conversation becomes dangerous, because it stops being about one man and turns into an entire machine. Empires built on silence only survive as long as the people inside them stay quiet. And right now, that silence is gone. The dam isn't just cracking, it's collapsing. Whispers turn into testimonies. Rumors turn into lawsuits. People who stayed quiet for years start giving interviews, voices shaking but still speaking. The more they talk, the clearer the picture becomes. This doesn't look like one downfall. It looks like a whole system being exposed. And systems don't run on emotion. They run on money. That brings the focus to the power moves behind the curtain. Because this web of silence isn't just personal, it's financial. It's leverage. It's careers, brands, and bank accounts. That's why Kim Porter's 2018 passing keeps being pulled back into the conversation. Officially, her death was ruled as natural causes by Los Angeles County. But the internet never stopped whispering, and the documentary leans into that tension, hinting that what she knew, and what she may have had access to, could be part of why her name resurfaces every time this story explodes again. Beyond that, the legal pressure keeps stacking. Lawsuits are piling up. Former employees, producers, and people connected to the inner circle are now battling over what they claim happened and what they believe they're owed. What used to be handled quietly through non-disclosure agreements and behind-the-scenes settlements is now being described as open legal warfare. In the public conversation, these cases aren't just framed as justice, they're framed as payback. Because when an empire crumbles, everyone who stayed quiet suddenly remembers what they saw. Everyone who played along suddenly wants distance. Everyone who felt used suddenly wants their version of the truth on the record. Look at the timing. The docuseries drops, and suddenly voices that have been silent for years start talking. That doesn't feel random. That feels like survival.
Collect everybody's phone. So now it's just your word against a billionaire. You're gonna lose. Read this right there.
People are rewriting their roles, flipping loyalties, and trying to land on the right side of history before the door slams shut. But what's really shaking people isn't just what has already been shown, it's what hasn't been shown yet. Because if the clips that surfaced are this damaging, imagine what's still buried. The documentary hints that Diddy has been filming obsessively since he was 19. Every party, every meeting, every private conversation, an archive. And if even part of that is true, then the scary question isn't whether the tapes exist.
Where Diddy said to her,
showed her
she
the video.
testified
Showed her the
that
freak-off video.
he showed her a video of a freak-off that she participated in and said, if you don't participate in another freak-off when we get to New York, I'm gonna put this video out. I'm gonna send it to your mother.
And that's coercion.
She testified to that.
If the jury
if they believed her,
yeah,
that's coercion. They would have cast.
It's who else is on them: friends, artists, executives, people who laughed at the jokes, played along, and looked the other way. That's why the pressure feels different now. Because a tape isn't just a scandal. A tape is leverage.
Book Porter allegedly recounts discovering and making copies of the tapes that Diddy made of himself having with young boys that he was managing, including an alleged tape involving an 18-year-old pop star.
So the question becomes, how far will people go to keep those recordings hidden? How much money will be thrown at silence? And what happens when someone decides the price of silence is no longer worth it? Because power only lasts as long as people are willing to enforce it. And right now, Diddy's inner circle isn't just cracking, it's turning on itself. Roger Bonds, described as a former head of security, broke down in tears and suggested it wasn't only Diddy. He framed it as something bigger, like a network where multiple people share responsibility. And when someone who was paid to protect you starts talking like that, it makes people wonder what those off the payroll are about to reveal. Next come the workers nobody sees, assistants, road managers, people who were in rooms but never on camera, artists who left Bad Boy with stories they were too afraid to tell until now. That's the real shift. The documentary might end, but the reckoning doesn't. If anything, it opens the door. And the biggest question hanging in the air is simple: who's next? Because Diddy didn't build this world alone. The white parties weren't a private playground, they were industry events. The culture around them involved too many people, too many careers, too many silent agreements. So when federal authorities reportedly raided homes connected to Diddy in 2024, people immediately started asking the same questions. What else was found? What names were in those files? How many powerful people are sweating right now, wondering if their past is about to become tomorrow's headline? Because this story was never only about Diddy. It's about a system built on untouchable fame and unchecked power, an era where the rules were written by people who believed consequences were for someone else. But now, the rules look different. So where are we now? A mogul in custody. A family still pushing denial. An entire industry holding its breath. Footage that people say rewrites the public memory of what was really happening, and the belief that more exists. Recordings that could burn whatever remains of that legacy to the ground. Artists who once praised him are suddenly acting like they barely knew him. And fans are left staring at the music they grew up on, wondering how much of it was built on something darker than anyone wanted to admit. This documentary gave people answers, but it left even bigger questions. What happens when the last loyalist flips? When the final non-disclosure agreement expires? When the next tape drops? Because make no mistake, people believe more is coming. And if this much surfaced while he still had influence, imagine what could surface now that he doesn't. So ask yourself, are we watching the fall of one man, or the unraveling of an entire system built on silence and control? Remember, stay sharp, stay skeptical, and never ignore the secrets people fight hardest to keep buried. We're just getting started. I'll see you in the next one.